Hello everyone, welcome to my Dragonbane solo campaign. This is another episode of bonus content. Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about the anatomy of a dungeon and maybe share a little bit of inspiration, personal stories about myself in the process. I've been thinking a lot lately. I started thinking this when I first started this whole chapter 3, when I decided to make this a complete story, when I started thinking about the vacant elf empire, what is this going to be coming up against? It reminded me of when I was a child, 10-year-old boy, first introduced to Dungeons and Dragons. This was back in the, I don't know, maybe early 80s, something like that. Reminds me of the advanced D&D, probably the most famous piece of art from Dungeons and Dragons. Easily this has got to be the most famous art done. A Paladin in Hell. The artist is a fellow by the name of David Sutherland, I think is his name. I want to make sure I give him credit. It's his piece of artwork. Like I said, probably the most famous piece of D&D artwork. So famous that I've never played or heard of it, but when I read about it, that in the late 90s, 1998, they actually made a Forgotten Realms module based off this photo, somehow called A Paladin in Hell. Never even knew. But I guess it must be famous if they decided to make their own artwork of it. But this artwork is so great. Isn't it like the essence of old school, right? When you think of the old school revival, this is the picture that comes to me with back when in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Here you have this paladin. He is backed up against the edge of a cliff. He has nowhere else to go. He has just got his sword, his shield, and an endless horde of demons in front of him. That's pretty metal. I'm pretty sure Ozzy Osbourne is playing in the background, right? Crazy Train has got to be going on in the background while he's fighting these demons. He doesn't look, his face is covered, but he doesn't look afraid. He's chopping this demon right here, fighting all the way through, even though he doesn't look like he has a chance. He's backed up against this wall. Has he been retreating all the way the time he's been up here in hell, to the point where he's got nowhere left to retreat? But at the same time, these demons kind of have a look of fear on their face. Look at this. There's concern in that crazy eyeball. This demon here even looks a little worried. I don't know what this looks like. It's got a big scorpion pincher if you have a picture over here. Anyway, I've never forgotten this photo. This is one of those things that even all these years later, from when I was a 10-year-old kid, I was like, wow, you mean to tell me we can play a character that can fight hordes of demons? I wasn't quite that way in D&D, but this was the image. This was the thought. They were like, this is the essence of D&D back in that day. Completely baller, man. Badass. Ozzy Osbourne playing in the background. Crazy Train. I can't sing, don't ask me. I was more of a punk kid than a heavy metal kid. Maybe I should be singing some Ramones. Either way, this was, to my 10-year-old impressionable self, it was something else. So, it somewhat became a bit of an inspiration subconsciously, I think, in this chapter. Isaacs, a knight himself, he's going up against something that could be vast numbers. I wanted that kind of sort of just old school feel of against the odds kind of battle. So, yeah, we are so many sessions into session 3. I fought exactly one elf this entire time. And, I can't spend all day here. This is not a separate campaign in and of itself. We got to move on. As I've stated, we got an appointment to keep in Ben Oak Swamp with a witch. I don't have all day to march through hell, but nevertheless, much like my 10-year-old self did when I looked at this photo and looked at it and thought about a paladin in hell when I created all these waypoints. One of the other things I liked to do when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old, I'm sure every young person playing D&D, even at our age now, we love drawing dungeons. Don't we just love drawing dungeons? I love drawing dungeons. They're just fun. And so yes, one thing I've learned is I draw dungeons now about as well as I drew them when I was 10 years old. My drawing skills, my dungeon creation skills have not improved since I was 10. Perhaps maybe they've even downgraded a bit. But yes, I have created a full-fledged 12-room dungeon. And this is like a complete chapter. When you think about waypoints, this is technically speaking 12 waypoints in here. This is its own chapter. Maybe I should call this chapter 4. Maybe this is just chapter 3.5, but this is a full chapter of content. I have to ask myself, how is it going to survive a dungeon? Well, you saw that I gave him a whole bunch of potions last round. Maybe with 3 healing potions and 1 willpower potion and 1 cure poison potion, is that going to be enough? I guess we'll see. But nevertheless, we're going to give it a shot. But I ran into some challenges. I had to think about some things. The story I got. I kind of know what story I want to tell. I know how Izek's going to defeat this dungeon. How he's going to vanquish the Vacant Elves. I've got that written out in my mind. But that does present a challenge when you're doing a waypoint system, creating it. I knew I had to start maybe with the end room, huh? When you're doing a dungeon, and you know how dungeons work. They work this way in all OSR games. It's not over until you hit that final room. That final room of the dungeons where the boss is, that's where you go. That's where it ends. So I knew, okay, maybe you might have a hidden vault after that. Maybe it's the second to the last dungeon. You have the boss, the final fight, then you have a vault room. Okay. Either way, you start with the final room. So this is the final room. I knew that I had to be a quest. It wasn't just a matter of marching on down there. I'm not going to be going down there and fighting a horde of elves. There has to be a quest involved in part of that. I've written out the quest. So I had to space it out a bit. I wanted there to be like kind of the rule of 3. I wanted there to be maybe 3 things Izek has to accomplish in this dungeon before he hits this final room in order to succeed. So I had to space that out. So I have, I can tell you the titles, doesn't matter. Forgotten Storage down here. The Temple of Silence, can you see that? It's a little bit down. Temple of Silence down here. The Arcane Library right here. And then finally, the final boss room, the Garden of Immortality. So when I was creating the dungeon, I kind of wanted to space those out. I thought about it first. I thought, well, maybe can I just do these 4 waypoints? Boom, 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 done. That's 4 waypoints probably, or at least a lot of content in it. Doing a full dungeon's a bit daunting. I have done 4-room dungeons, quite a few now. I did one in chapter 1 with the Horde House of the Gluttonous God. It had 4 rooms. The Bullseye Barrow in chapter 2, basically a 3-tiered barrow. The Manor House was more of a house. I explored a lot of rooms in that house, but it was just kind of a house, 2-story. I could do this, but once again, I guess it just didn't quite hit right with me. I'm like, no, they should be spread out. It would seem strange for Izek to enter this underground cave, and there would just be 4 rooms. Each room had a clue for me to destroy the final boss. I guess it didn't appease my 10-year-old mind. Okay, so anyway, I made the map. I found a way to space these out. As weird as it may sound, I'm still sort of sticking with the waypoint system. So even though I have 4 story beats, the story needs to hit. I've got to hit these story beats. They don't necessarily have to be. I know that these are pretty written out. I know what Isaac has to do. He's going to do it. Part of the story, he's going to succeed at it. As long as he can get to these rooms and actually do what he's done. But unless things go horribly wrong, Isaac's going to find a way through the story. Created 4 rooms to be like written waypoints. These are just your normal waypoints like you would find, like I've been working all the way through so far. But I just wrote out a basic challenge description. The crystal pool that's down here. The pillaged mausoleum that's right here. The fungal floor, which is right here. And finally the bone grinder, which is right here. But I've just written out basically what's in the room, what is going to cause Isaac problems, how Isaac is going to solve these problems. I guess that's up to the oracles and the dice. I don't even really know for sure what the real troubles are going to be until I get there. Oracles will have that for me. And then all the other empty rooms on the map, those are going to be my unknown chambers. Those will be the ones in which I'll roll an oracle. I don't even know what's in them until we get there. I've made a full-fledged, pretty full chapter. Really it is. This is probably the closest to Deep Fall Breach, if we're being honest. Deep Fall Breach, in our main book here, as originally put forth by our Alone in Deep Fall Breach, by our model that we've been going with, is probably mostly accurate and true to call this a dungeon. They're 4 separate, areas, but they play out like a dungeon, really. So, in truth, an underground dungeony area is more true to the original concept. But still, it's a lot. I'm going to try pretty hard to kind of make these fairly quick and easy as much as I can. But, I don't know what the dice are going to tell me. The ironic thing is, I don't know what we're going to run into as far as elves are concerned. I think it's really funny how I built the Vacant Empire Mage and the Vacant Empire Elf. I've run exactly 1 elf. I don't know where, actually, truth be told, in my dungeon, I may run into elves. I think, for the most part, if I run into combat encounters, I better make sure they're elves. Otherwise, I'm going to feel silly for having written up NPCs that I don't ever run into after all the build-up. But the story I'm very excited for. I think I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be so cool. It's going to be, it's going to be metal. I'm pretty sure this dungeon is going to have Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC back here playing in the background. I'm pretty certain of it. Anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit about the anatomy of the dungeon. Just the weird challenges involved of how you incorporate a story along with the usual suspects of written waypoints and unknown waypoints. As you can tell, this map is kind of silly. Anyway, one of the ways I think I can do it is some of these rooms are definitely going to be optional. I don't need to go into here. Truth be told, I don't even need to go in this waypoint 7. I can skip it. I don't need to go into this room here. There's rooms I can skip. So if things get really bad, get tough, I believe I'll be skipping a few of these waypoints, not dealing with them at all. Anyway, I'm going to try to post up this playthrough through this dungeon, in fairly short increments. We'll see how we do. Anyway, that's an anatomy of a dungeon. Thanks for tuning in. Next session, Isaac will begin his crawl through this dungeon to finally find the source of the corruption that has cursed these elves, put into that curse, and accomplish the quest given to him by the ancient elven prince. Thank you.